I'm not really sure how I'm going to follow such an inspiring input, but I'm going to try and do my best. So what we're going to do now is take a wee look at points on the improvement plan that we sent out, and within that, some quality assurance. So when we think about what Louise has said about the digital technology sector being the fastest growing in Scotland, and that there are new roles continuing to emerge with technology at its heart, we owe it to our children and young people to give them the experiences and skills to prepare them for opportunities that may arise for them in the future. And that might put many of our teachers out of their comfort zone. And around schools, you'll often hear statements such as, "I'm not any good with technology," or "these computers hate me." But with other local authorities in Scotland, such as the ones on the screen now, taking matters into their own hands and rolling out one-to-one devices to cohorts of their learners, we'll have to be careful that Aberdeenshire doesn't get left behind. And we'll have to prepare ourselves for when it's our turn to implement it in our schools. So that's what today's been all about, because we need to work from the top down. And as you're the leaders in your schools, you're the ones placing that value and importance on this. And it's going to be your job to bring your staff on that journey with you. And that can be a very daunting thought for some, wondering if you're on the right track or where to start. But having a plan is the very best place to start. And the work that you've done with Louise this morning has given you a wee bit of time and space to reflect on where you feel you need to concentrate your efforts as a leader. So the LoveLearning team, we've designed this or developed this improvement plan example to support you in planning your way forward with digital learning and teaching in preparation for one-to-one. And Paul sent this out just before the summer. And we don't want it to be something that dictates to you how you should do things in your school. It's not a one size fits all, and there's no one saying that you have to use it. We're really very much aware of the wide range of different contexts across Aberdeenshire, and we're promoting this as a starting point where you can assess and prioritise what needs to be done in your school. So up on the screen, I've picked out the action points from the plan, and don't panic when you see how much is on there. It's not a plan that you would get through in a year if you were to work your way through it, and it's very much up to you if you want to use any of it, all of it, or none of it. And it's also not something that you can just tick and say, "Oh, that's that done," because there are many aspects that you'll need to come back to and revisit. It's like what we were saying about the Digital Schools Award. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I've got that now, I'll just move on to something else," and forget about it. You need to go back and revisit, because with technology, you can't afford to pause or blink. Everything moves really quickly, and you have to keep up that pace too. So there are some aspects of the plan that I want to draw your attention to and consider for your school. And the first section that I want to draw your attention to is online safety. Because as we get closer to one-to-one rollout, it's more important than ever to ensure that online safety is a priority. And it's going to be an expectation to have this in place when one-to-one comes to your school. It can be a bit overwhelming, but you're not starting from scratch. And remember that it's not a job that will happen overnight. So 360 Safe Scotland have got a template for an online safety policy, and it can seem a bit daunting when you're faced with it initially, but we would recommend that you set up an online safety group within your school if you haven't done that already. And that can be made up of teachers, parents, pupils, and other members of your community. What to do is go through the template together, adapt it for your school, and build up that shared understanding of the expectations of online safety in your school, and set clear steps as to what to do if something happens online that you need to address. Then you're going to get buy-in from your whole school community. And once you get started and have your group, it doesn't take that long to do. And we'd also recommend undertaking the 360 Safe Scotland review, which will help you identify the areas where you need to improve your online safety. So this is an online tool where you assess each area and see where your strengths and weaknesses lie. It's free to use, and we don't expect you to pay for accreditation, but we feel that the process is an important one to go through. And you get a report at the end for your records, which we would really love if you would share with us too. And there's also the Safer Schools app, which is free for Aberdeenshire. And that's something that you can promote with parents to raise their awareness and their confidence in supporting their children. And we've got 3 sessions on Love Learning safely over the course of the year. So if it's something that you feel you need a bit of support with or just want to learn a bit more about, I would recommend signing up for the first of those sessions in November, which focuses on online safety as a school. Now, you might be sitting there thinking that it doesn't apply to you because you've already got an online safety policy in place and you've already undertaken that review. But it is really important that once you have these in place, you don't forget about them and you review them annually to ensure that they're up to date. That's also going to support you and your staff with online expectations that you have for your pupils. It'll minimise any online incidents and reassure you that you've got a sound procedure in place that everyone is aware of if you do have to deal with an incident. So going forward as the Love Learning team, we are going to be requesting copies of your updated online safety policy. The next area to look at, which Louise has already mentioned, is the document's features of highly effective digital learning, teaching and assessment in schools, which is a bit of a mouthful to say. And I mention it again because it's a great document for you to use as part of your self-evaluation. So the document is split into these sections: planning, teaching, learning and assessment. And it has suggestions as to what each of these areas might look like. It also gives you an idea of what to look for as part of your quality assurance. And within the document, there is a template. Here's a screenshot of it here that you can use as a staff, which takes each of those sections and allows you to reflect on what you're doing, how well you're doing it, and what you should do next. Now, another document that as a team we feel is of great value is the West Hill Academy Digital Learning and Teaching Strategy that they developed as a team. And we're really grateful that they're happy for this to be shared. We sent this out to schools at the end of last term in that email that Paul sent out with the improvement plan, but we can send it out again if needs be because we do realise that the holidays were looming at that point and you may have had other things on your mind. So a core team within West Hill Academy realised that there was a lot of work needed within the school in terms of experience, devices and confidence to bring everyone to the same level. They developed their strategy as a starting place so that a shared expectation was clear across the school. So this document brings together the GTCS standards and Higias 4, and it's pulled out the digital aspects and put them all together in one place so that you can focus right in on them. It brings the whole school together to reflect as a team, as a faculty and as individual teachers. And it's very pertinent to both primary and secondary because it's taken those areas of planning, teaching, learning and assessment from that document that I showed you before and set out statements which will focus you in on your quality assurance. So what to look for within forward plans, what to look for during classroom observations and learning walks, what to look for in evidence that's presented to you during tracking and monitoring sessions. So there are key statements in there which you could lift and just put in those formats that you've got already. So this slide's about the SAMR model. And the SAMR model is something else that can support you with your quality assurance. And it's something that you can think about when you go into classrooms and look at how technology is being used. So the SAMR model has 4 tiers, as you can see there. First of all, we've got substitution, where there's no functional change to the task and the technology acts as a direct substitute. So this could be something like posting a worksheet on Google Classroom or Teams. It's still exactly the same worksheet that you could have photocopied and handed out, but instead they're accessing it electronically. There's no change to the content there, just the way that it's been delivered. Or perhaps you're making a recording of your lesson. So you've stood up, you've done that lesson, you've made a recording of it. There's nothing different to what you've stood up and delivered, but pupils can come back to it and watch it again later. Or perhaps you've got pupils typing up their work instead of writing it in a jotter. Those are all examples of substitution. Augmentation allows the technology to act as a substitute, but with functional improvement. So it might give learners a better understanding or make a lesson more engaging than it would be using traditional methods. So supplementing a lesson with a YouTube video which helps to explain a code. Oh, sorry. Someone wanting to ask a question? No. So supplementing a lesson with a YouTube video which helps to explain a concept perhaps, or a PowerPoint which has got interactive elements with it. Modification allows the technology to help redesign tasks significantly. So, for example, pupils could create a video about their learning instead of writing out an essay, or perhaps they could make an animation to show a scientific process instead of drawing out a flowchart. And then finally, redefinition is when the technology allows for the creation of new tasks, which you couldn't do without the technology. So, for example, going on a virtual field trip, maybe you're learning all about the rainforest, and you could use virtual reality to allow you to visit the Amazon rainforest, or perhaps you want to visit New York, you could go and have a little look at the view from the top of the Empire State Building. You couldn't do that in your classroom normally. Or what about filming people's trying out gymnastic skills, and then they can watch it back, they can reflect on what they've done and think about how they can improve. Or testing a scientific theory by recording an experiment in action and then watching that back in slow motion to drill down into what's happening. So substitution and augmentation strategies use technology to enhance learning and add value, whereas modification and redefinition use technology to transform the learning. So just take a wee minute to think about where the use of technology has fallen in the last observations that you did. Did you go in and see the smartboard on for a presentation? Maybe there were some pupils playing a bit of hit the button, or some other pupils typing some things up. And did you sit there and think, oh, well, that's really good. I can see that technology is being used. I'll tick that off. Sometimes that's fine. Hit the button is great for a bit of numeracy practice. Nothing wrong with having a presentation or typing things up. And it is important to note that SAMR isn't a ladder that you've got to get to the top of, because we don't always have to redefine the learning, but think to yourself, if substitution is what you're always seeing, try to challenge your teachers to experiment with activities which are more transformative. And equally, and this has been mentioned before, are you just seeing technology being used for the sake of it? Could the lesson have been delivered better without it? Because we don't always have to use technology, and it's about knowing when it's better not to. So when teachers are planning and thinking about how they're going to use technology in the lesson, get them to ask themselves, how can my lesson be improved using technology? How can I engage and empower my learners through technology? And how does my lesson allow my learners to develop those digital skills they need today and in the future? And that links into the TPAC model, which you will have heard Jim mention before. This model gets teachers to think about what they teach, which is the content, how they teach it, the pedagogy, and then the role of technology used effectively within this to help them design great lessons for our learners. Now, a key feature in your digital journey is going to be professional learning, and that features strongly in the improvement plan and in many of your comments that you've put on the Jamboard. So you could have all the fanciest tech in the world at your school, but if your teachers don't know how to use it or how to integrate it into their lessons, then it's not going to be used effectively or even at all. And the same goes for your support staff as well. We mustn't forget about them. They need to feel confident that they know how to work the technology in order to feel they can support the pupils that they work with. So we've got an in-service planned in February for PSAs, which they can attend and learn about the basics of iPad and show them how to use some of the most commonly used apps that they'll see teachers using in the class, how they can troubleshoot common problems, and how they can support learners with accessibility tools, because we want to give them that confidence too. You may have teachers that are happy using technology and confident and open to new ideas. However, there's always going to be some who don't have that confidence or perhaps even that inclination, and we've got to allow them the time to develop that. So last week, Bruce Robertson talked of a culture of professional learning that he'd established within his school in the Borders. And at Kelso High, also in the Borders, they've implemented this too. And within this, they've created time for digital pedagogy, recognising with the implementation of iPads one-to-one across their school There was a massive range of confidence and experience across their staff, from the ones who'd never picked up an iPad and had limited experience using technology in their classroom, to those who were very confident and willing to give it a go and try out new things. And you're going to find this is the case in your school too. And what they did was establish 3 professional learning groups within their staff for 3 different levels of experience and confidence, meaning that people could work and learn at their own pace without being overwhelmed or under-challenged. Digital leaders would lead these groups and introduce something new, and staff would go off and try it. And at the meetings, staff would discuss how they got on, what worked, what didn't work. They'd share new things that they'd tried out and any professional learning that they'd done. And enough time was left between meetings to give people the chance to plan and experiment. Staff were given incentives to undertake professional learning in this area, and that ended up with 80% of their teachers getting their Apple Teacher qualification. And they were also given time where they could go and observe other colleagues and learn from each other, not just in their own school, but in other schools in the local authority too. So if you were building Bruce Robertson's idea of professional learning groups into what you do, then this could be incorporated as part of it. This culture of learning was deeply embedded across their school, and they were awarded an excellence in professional learning from the GTCS for their work. Now, I've got some Omahid slides because often whenever I went along to things like this as a head teacher, sometimes I would go away saying, Omahid. And as someone who's come from a small school, I know that I would be sitting where you're right now thinking, well, that's all well and good in secondary where you've got a large number of staff and you can make decent sized groups and get that professional learning discussion going. But I don't have that many staff. And I'd also be thinking, oh, here's another thing that I've got to take on. This is another area of responsibility that's going to fall on my shoulders, along with all the multitudes of other things that that Aberdeenshire and Scotland are asking you to do. But if you are a small school, I'd consider joining up with some other schools to create a professional learning group if you haven't done that already, and I'm sure a lot of you have. So at Crudy, which is where I was at, we were part of the KFC, and that sounds really delicious, and often it was because we'd have a fine piece involved, but it wasn't anything to do with food or chicken. It was a group of 3 similar sized schools in the same cluster. So King Edward, Fintry and Crudy, KFC. And we'd work together on common aspects of our improvement plans to give our teachers the chance of working with a stage partner and to give ourselves more bodies to bounce ideas off, because it can be quite isolating working in a small school. So you could consider doing this with some schools in your cluster, or perhaps you could join up with your trio groups and work as a staff instead of just the head teachers working together. And in this case too, you could just have one digital leader for your group instead of having one per school, and you could meet a couple of times a term perhaps. So my second Omahid is another barrier that you might have in your way just now could be the number of devices that you've got access to currently. And you might think that there's not much point in doing anything until you get these one-to-one devices because you currently don't have many, so what's the point? But what you don't want is for your teachers to be left panicking when all of a sudden they've got 30 devices in their class. That is going to be a surefire way for them to get to be used ineffectively or just popped away in a cupboard and not used at all. And we don't want that. So start to think creatively so that teachers do get the opportunity to start trying things out with their classes. So instead of having a handful of devices per class, which might end up being used as a bum sticker and let's put them on some dog or hit the button or whatever, why not pool those devices together and give staff the chance to book them out for a morning or afternoon slot? And maybe I'm preaching to the converted here already. Maybe you're already doing these sort of things, but you know, could you maybe get a rotation in place so that each class gets a block of device use? Could you buddy up perhaps with another local school? I don't know if that would work. Pool your devices, take it a week about. There would be some logistics involved in that, but I mean, it's something that perhaps you could consider. And remember as well that you've got PC refresh money, which you can spend on new devices. So don't hang off thinking one-to-one is coming, so I don't need to spend this on upgrading what I've got or adding to what I've got. Remember that we've got 17 clusters that we'll have to roll out devices to, and it won't happen all at once, so your turn might take a wee while in coming. And maybe talk to your staff and see if they've got any ideas on how to make this work. And you might also be thinking, but I myself, I'm not a very techie person. Well, we don't expect you to be able to do all of this yourselves. You have just got to lead and inspire your team. That is your job as a head teacher or a member of SLT. So remember that you can pick out that member of staff in your team who has got an enthusiasm for technology, and they can be your digital leader if you haven't got that in place already. And although our LoveLearning team is quite small, we are here to help and provide support. And Jim, in a minute, he's about to go over our new digital pedagogy hub, and we're hoping that'll become a one-stop shop for teachers for information, help, ideas and resources. And we hope that as teachers gain in confidence, they'll start to contribute lessons so that we can get a culture of sharing across the authority. And Jim's also going to go through the CLPL site, which you might have had a quick look at already, but he's going to give you an in-depth look so you can explore what's on there and see what support there is for your teachers. Now, I'm just about getting to the end here. Another piece of support that we have for you and that's mentioned on the improvement plan, and you might have been thinking, oh, what's this all about, is a transition project that we've been developing in conjunction with Kim Applin, who's the RAISE officer, Macduff Marine Aquarium and the Devon Rivers Trust. So what we've done is we've worked together to create a project based around sustainability, and we've focused on Global Goal 14, Life Below Water, because each of our clusters are either next to the North Sea or near a river, meaning that there should be something in the project for everyone. So the idea with the project is that we would hope that it would get primary and secondary schools working together to create a transition that flowed between the two, rather than pupils being given a few tasks to do in primary, perhaps like a moving schools book, and then going up to secondary for a few days transition to do some things that are perhaps unrelated to what was going on in primary. So hopefully this link will work. So we'd like the schools to work together to look at our suggested activities and decide which activities could be done at primary and which could be followed on into secondary. So it could be that in primary they do some of the experiments and then they showcase the results from those when they do their transition days. Or it could be that they prepare a debate on the pros and cons of dredging. And then when they go up for their visit, they could have that debate against some of their peers from one of the other cluster schools. So we have got an introductory page here. And then along the top, we've got curricular areas. And if we go into health and well-being, for example, you'll see that we've got drop downs. And what we've done is provide lesson ideas with links to websites and resources and how it fits in with the curriculum. We haven't provided structured lesson plans so that they can be easily adapted to fit in with the context that you are in. Technologies is slightly different. So in our drop downs up here, we've got some suggestions on how you can use technology to support the ideas in the other curricular areas. But if we go further down, we've also got ideas from Scratch and Microbit on coding. So as I've said already, we work closely with Macduff Marine Aquarium and the Rivers Trust on this, and they've shared their resources and expertise with us. So they've also got pages up here too. You could include a trip to the aquarium or a local river within your transition. And within the aquarium pages, there are links to their visit outline. So you can see that here and here as well. You can click on those and they'll take you to their visit outlines. We've also got other activities connected to the aquarium, which you don't necessarily have to go on a trip for. And each page follows a similar structure. So if we click here in filtration, takes you to a Google site and it will give you, if this works, it's taken a wee minute, it gives you a wee explanation about what filtration is, and then it has a video showing how the filtration system works at the aquarium so that your pupils can see a real life example of filtration in action and make those links between their learning and real life. And then they can carry out their own experiment on filtration and record their results. There's a link here to a numbers workbook that they can then record the results in and link those two things up. Further down on each page, there are the links back to previous pages. So you just click on them and it goes back into the previous site and how it links up to the experiences and outcomes. If we quickly go into the habitats page, same structure again, and they can do lots of experiments and things like that. So here they can create their own augmented reality habitat using pictures that they've got from the aquarium. And we've also linked this project into GamesCon for this year. We're starting that up again this year. And we want people to create an animation or a game in Scratch, which visitors to the aquarium could play to find out more about Global Goal 14, Life Below Water. So the winning team would then get their game or animation developed further by RGU, and the game will be displayed around the aquarium as a QR code which visitors could scan and play. So that very much gives a purpose to their learning. And as part of the GamesCon competition, the aquarium are providing free online support sessions for schools where pupils can ask them questions relating to life underwater, which would support them in the development of their game. And even if your cluster decides not to do the transition project, you can still take part in this competition. There's still a bit of work to be done with this project, but the aim is to have it finished and ready before Christmas with a CLPL session in February. So thanks so much for listening to me drone on. I hope there's some bits and pieces that you'll be able to take away from that. And I'm going to stop sharing now and hand over to Jim, who's going to go over the Digital Pedagogy Hub and the CLPL site.
That's great, Julia. Thanks very much. So I'm confident. I'm worried now. I've got the slot between now and lunchtime, so I'll be quick. Don't worry. So what I've got to say is thank you very much, Julia and Louise, as away. And you've heard from Julia today about the preparation that we're engaged in to make our work more visible to you and our commitment to work with you in promoting the use of contemporary digital technologies in learning and teaching. We also heard from Louise encouraging you to think about whole school approaches for the sustainable challenges needed as we move our learning to include these modern digital tools and how we deliver that curriculum with them. So we've been providing support for many years, the Learning with Technology team and now the LoveLearning team, generally skills-based, because that's what we felt we needed. And we still think there is an element of skills-based required for many of our staff to up the skills so that they can be delivering learning and teaching using digital tools. And that support accelerated greatly during the pandemic, where it was evident that we had a gap in how we use the digital tools. However, with huge numbers of iPads and Chromebooks delivered to Connect in Scotland, and with the considerable input from the Aberdeenshire Trust, the amount of digital technology available for students, individual students, increased in such a short time by around about 8,000 devices. Overall, we have tens of thousands of iPads across Aberdeenshire, thousands of Chromebooks and PCs. So we do have quite a lot of technology in your schools. We appreciate it's a bit aged now because it's taken a long time to get the PC refresh in place, and that's because of the global delay in chips. But we should start to be seeing more computers getting into schools, and that effectively helps us because we're trying to promote this digital way of working now. So with the one-to-one devices promised by the Scottish Government getting closer, we are continuing to develop resources, work with many stakeholders. We are working with ICT, for example, to improve the infrastructure, which is absolutely essential. So when the devices do land on the desks of your students and yourselves, that you're ready and have the confidence to make full use of them in your and your teachers' classrooms, whatever the age, stage, or curriculum area. Bruce Robertson, I've got to share my screen, I forgot now. Bruce Robertson, some of us may have been at the Bruce Robertson event a few weeks ago. He spoke a couple of weeks about the importance of professional learning, and we've heard the same today from Louise and from Julia. And the LoveLearning team certainly see partnership opportunities with yourselves. And as you can see from this slide here in his professional learning model, and the slide I think he uses he uses these elements at his school, you can see that we could fit into any of those areas to help you out. We're not saying that we're going to provide you with the professional learning that you're going to need, because the expertise, we'd want that to be, oh, can't see my screen. Oh no. Wait to go then. Hang on then, I'll try again. Is that better? Can you see the screen,
That's
Julia?
it now. Yeah,
We can see it now, yeah.
That's it. Oh, my techie job, my techie money failed. That's no use. So anyway, so that's his professional learning model. But as you can see in each of these elements, share, participate, get feed, practice, and observe. These are generally focused on his school, but you can see that the LoveLearning team could easily fit in there. We can help with the learning. We want to help you share the learning. You'll see that in a wee bit now. We can exemplify good practice, not only from Aberdeenshire, which is what we want to passionately do to show that great practice that's going on in Aberdeenshire, but also from the schools and local authorities and people that we know both in Scotland and in UK. We can share that with you. We can easily help you. You can easily help you participate in discussions, workshops, working groups, collaborative planning. We can be doing all that, and you can see from the rest of the elements that we could help in there. So our aims, though, and they're probably long term, is to work with you to build a capacity in your schools and clusters so that expertise is eventually centred in your schools, because that's the best place for it to be. So the LoveLearning team, we're going to be there all the time to help that you build that capacity, to help build the expertise until one day we can cut that cord and get on our way. And then we only have to hear from you when you think, oh, something new's come along. Do we know anything about it? And we can maybe help you with that. So we want to be part and parcel of your professional learning models and support. So what are we doing to help you with that? Well, you've heard that the Efficient Transition site from Julia. We've also been creating other online resources, and I'm going to quickly introduce you to them today. But remember, these are still under construction, and we're hoping as time goes by, you and your teachers will start to contribute, because that's what we want to be sharing this learning, to make it easier for teachers that are thinking, oh my goodness, I need to do something on such and such, and they're just going to know to go to this site and they'll find something nice and easily. So first up, though, let's make sure this all works now. First up is we've created a site for parents and carers. This is a public access site, so anyone with this link can see this. And what we've put in here is basic information about our team, and we've put bits and pieces we think parents and guardians might want to know about digital in school. So we've got a bit here about iPads and other technologies, and we've got a huge, great FAQs there for one-to-one devices for iPads, why we'd use them, but also we've got a link to other devices. We've got a section here on Glow, and there's parental advice on Glow, and that links to Glow Connect and so on. And the same with Scholar for our secondary colleagues. We've got links to Scholar and the courses that are available and the benefits of using Scholar at home and at school for young people. Then we've put a bit on well-being, looked at mental health, and we just put in links here to the major providers of mental health resources across UK and across Scotland. Internet safety, links to internet safety providers, COP and so on, that parents could dip in and dip out of and see how that's similar to what's happening in school. Is actually they'll see what's happening for themselves because it links to the same sites. Then we've got a link to a student site here. This student site only goes to Glow. So when they click on that, there's a student site in Glow, of which there's not a lot in there at the moment. We've got to develop that. And then we've got teacher pages. And you think, oh my goodness, we've got teacher pages in a public site. No, that teacher page only goes to, when I click the button properly, that only goes to the hub that we're going to look at in the next wee minute. So the hub is where we're going to go. So if I click on here, that will take me to the hub. But I've opened it up to be nice and quick here. So here's our LoveLearning hub. I'll just put Julia out the way here. Here's our LoveLearning hub. Now we're trying to make this as simple as possible. So as you can see, there are very few elements on this front page here. These items will change, and we're going to keep this to 8 items here. These items will change. There's that student Glow page I spoke about, and as you'll see, there's not a lot in here. So we've got using iPads, FAQs, activities, and so on. So there's not a lot here. This is still under development. We've got stuff for the GamesCon that Julia spoke about. We've got stuff for Minecraft because we had a competition earlier, and there's another Minecraft competition for primary and secondary, S1 to S3, coming up soon. We've got student devices FAQ in case you want to know about bits and pieces. Our latest news, because we want to be sharing the news then a link to GERFEC and learning experiences from K McDonald's team. So these are all there, and these will all change over time. But the other principal areas we've got here is we've got a pedagogy button here. We've got the professional learning catalogue, a bit about the LoveLearning team, virtual classroom and DYW. That's been developed at the moment, so that's not quite finished because we want that to be in here. But if we look at the professional learning catalogue first, that will just click us into a blog. And in the blog here, and the Fishing Transition blog, the Parent Carent blog, this blog, they're all created in Glow. So they're all Glow blogs, which are super duper now. Bruce Robertson, sorry, we've spoken a little bit about teachers being able to dip in and dip out of elements to try for themselves. So we've put CLPL resources from the manufacturers of things that you'll see in your school. You'll have smart boards, you'll have iPads, you'll have Clever Touch boards, you'll have Microsoft products, you'll have Google products. So if they click in here, click into any of these sites, they'll get the free CLPL from these major providers. So even if there was nothing in this site, there's enough stuff here to be clicking on to keep teachers busy for a long time, should they want to do that in their own time. But along the top here, this is the key bit here. So we've got here our CLPL. This here's our CLPL calendar here. And on Julia's board here, you can click on bits and pieces here. And at the very bottom, we've got a calendar. And if it's highlighted, you can click on that, and that's going to go to a CLPL event. And you can see here, here's the event. If I wanted to, it tells us a little bit about it. And if I want to book on it, I click on this, and that'll take me to a Microsoft form. And I can then book the form. Oops, except all you see down here, a little bit more information about it. I can then book. Oh no, it's not. I've gone to a Scholar one. Here we are. I've gone. Sorry, that's a Scholar. I've picked one that's external. This is a Scholar event, so you'd register for Scholar. Sorry about that. If I'd picked one that was an Aberdeenshire one, we would have got a link and a form, and we get an email to that, and you get an email to say that you signed on that. Our in-service days are here, so that tells us about our in-service day events that are coming up and how you can click onto them. So we've got bits and pieces. I'll have to try one that's not a one. Oh, here we are. I love learning about the Digital Pedagogy Hub. So we can read a little bit about that. We click on the link. That tells us a bit more about it. And then down here, we click on the same link, and that provides that form. You fill that in, and that sends an email to the team, and we put you in a spreadsheet, and you'll get an email to say that you're on the course. Also in the CLPL opportunities, we've got a bit for supporting learners. So we've got bits of accessibility. So if you've got some devices, you think, okay, I've got some youngsters that need accessibility tools. How can we do that? So there's videos here for all the major providers, iPad, Windows, and Google. So click on that for some advice. We're an Apple Regional Training Centre, so we provide courses as well. So there's bits and pieces in here about how you can be using iPads. Leadership, we've got Apple leadership resources, and this will be expanded for the digital pedagogy leaders. And then we've got links to Glow, how you can be using your Launchpad, your Office 365, Google, and coming shortly to Glow will be Adobe Creative Express. So that's really a one-stop shop where you want to go for your CLPL, whether it's just to browse and click on some items and get some information delivered to you, or whether it's you want to actually look at an event and book on something and actually attend that. So that's our LoveLearning catalogue for Aberdeenshire, and this is live for everybody at the moment now. We've made it so it's accessible, as accessible as it can be in this blog, so you get different toggle sizes and different contrasts for people that require that. And we've put a Google Translate button in here, and that translates the page quite quickly, and that's on all the pages. So we're trying to make that as accessible as we can.
Jim,
Okay,
before you come off of that page,
oh, yeah,
sorry, it was just that someone in the chat had asked if you could go through how to sign up for a session a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, it was because it was lunchtime. I'm thinking you're getting hungry, but here we go. So I go to CLPL opportunities, and I click on the CLPL calendar. So down here, I can look at the calendar, or there's different bits. I'll let you explore that, but we're just going to look for a date. So let's look for a date. And in the calendar, it tells you all the resources, but I'm just going to click here. So I want to go to the LoveLearning to use Glow. So I click on that event here, and I can read a little bit about the event here, LoveLearning to use Glow. And it tells me the date that the thing is, and a little bit of what's going to happen. And then all I have to do is click on this link at the bottom. And this link is there on everything that you want to book. You saw it for Scholar. It was a link, but it took you to the Scholar page. Because this is a LoveLearning team session, it clicks the LoveLearning team, and you just fill in your details in this form, click submit, and that sends an email to our LoveLearning mailbox, and you will get confirmation that you're on the course. What we've also tried to do with the pedagogy, because Bruce Robertson said, and Louise has said that as well, there's no point in having a single piece of online learning or learning and then nothing happens. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to group it together into 2 or 3 sessions that we'd hope you'd continue with. And when you sign up for one, we will automatically send you reminders for the other sessions as they come up. So that's in our professional learning catalogue there. So hopefully that's been okay for that. And that's all the bits and pieces there. Okay, next thing to look at then is go back to our Pedagogy Hub. So we can have a quick look at the LoveLearning team. Is just a little bit about us. You want to know a little bit about us, that just tells you about us. There's me there. There you go. And we're all there. We're all there. So you can find out about us. If you don't know about us, that's in there. We've got the virtual classroom because we're working on how would a hybrid classroom look as we move into the future. What kind of digital technology would we need that makes a teacher's life really easy? And you could be, it's not approved at the moment, but you could be in the future simply teaching youngsters at home there for whatever reason and in class. So we're looking at ideas around that at the moment. So that's that virtual classroom. And DYW, that'll be a link to DYW pages, just BBC because it's not, doesn't go anywhere at the moment. That will be looking at the whole DYW agenda there as well. In the pedagogy pages, what we've tried to do here is split it into CFE areas, senior phase, and aspects resources. So in the CFE areas, we've split it into early to 4th level. We've put in various links here. Oak National Academy for the UK kinds of online resources to help teachers and youngsters, and the West to West. This link might not work. We're still trying to get this to work. But for example, in the early level, it doesn't matter, it'll all be the same. We've just split it into the curricular areas, and we've included online safety, IDL projects, and transition projects. And the hope is that you would come, if you're in early level, you'd come and click on literacy in English, and there'd be some resources here for you to tap into. Now you can see they're very few and far between now, because this is the area we'd want to be encouraging you to be encouraging your staff to say, that's a really good piece of work. Why not share that? And we'll put it on the site. Now we know that sharing is really quite tricky and people maybe not have the confidence. So we're happy to work with you. We're happy to work with you to make the resources, and to, if you want, make it anonymous so no one knows where it's come from. So that's the kind of thing we'd like to put into here. That was the West to West one. This was an Oak Academy one. So you'll get the idea. You click on a link and you get some lesson ideas. They don't have to be fully fledged lesson plans, but as much information as you can. And that's where we hope that we can start to build up a really exciting resource for all our Aberdeenshire teachers, and maybe expand that into Northern Alliance. That's what we're looking for there. So we've got that in its kind of ready to go form for each of the levels. There'll be nothing in here. It'll be just the same because that's what we're doing. But I don't think I've put anything into these places. No, I haven't. You see, so there's nothing in here yet. So it's ready to go. In the senior phase, part, let's go back to in sport. In the senior phase, we haven't got anything in here yet because we've got to develop that for the curricular areas, and we really want to be speaking to secondary schools about this to see what sort of things could be going in here. And the specialist aspect stuff, Dave from Aspects has been putting stuff in here for those children that need support from his team. So that's really a quick look round the developing digital pedagogy site. There will be elements in the pedagogy page here. There will be elements if we can link to them for additional reading, additional research that you might want to be interested in. So that's got to go in there. But that's basically what our Pedagogy Hub will be, a one-stop shop that you're going to go to and hopefully find information you need, which will be the pedagogy, how you're going to deliver, what sort of lessons you're going to deliver in class, how can I get some professional learning, what's happening in DYW, who's in that LoveLearning team, and eventually what would a virtual classroom look like. So hopefully that's been a very quick look around the sites that we're developing. So we looked at the parent site, the CLPL site, and the pedagogy site. So I think now we're ready for some questions. Let me shut this down. Let me shut all this down to get back to the page. Where are we? Here we are. Here we go. So I'll just stop sharing and leave